Oh, hello. Welcome back to Keeping It Real. This is Jim, Terry, and Ahmad. Yes, that is the actual intro I'm going with here. We're going to be talking about all sorts of cool things this week, starting with that new Wonder Woman trailer.
So good.
All right. Now, you say that, but Tom, our producer, pointed out a few things that he doesn't think it's all that. And I've heard that echoed. Joshua Yale also wasn't like 100% sold on this trailer.
Interesting.
Let's start with this. Do we really know any idea of who's she fighting in this? I know it's World War One. Duh, I know that. But like, what are the bad guys up to? They've got Dr. Poison or whoever that one in the mask is.
Are you saying that is a con to this trailer? Because I'm like, good, great. Like I would love to have that kept a mystery, unless it's totally disappointing, which
Well,
there's always a chance. But I actually really liked sort of the thematic idea of World War I being like, as they say, like the war to end all wars, and that's what forces her to say, no, I don't want to just stay on this island. I need to come out and help. We're trying to save humanity. I thought that really worked for me. I had chills from like start to finish of that trailer.
What about you, Ahmad?
Are we going to see a superhero movie about isolationism versus protectionism? Maybe.
Wow, he did keep it real. Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, we were kind of joking too, like, well, what is she battling in this movie? And we're like, sexism, things that can't be defeated, apparently.
She's going to punch sexism in the nose.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I just wonder, like, what are the bad guys after? There's some sort of weapon going on there. Just curious about that. Like, there's the
gas weapon.
Well, but then there's like, it looks like a big energy blast at one point. I'm a little curious about it. It's not, I'm not saying this necessarily as a con, but I think that as cool as the trailer is, the first trailer was still more exciting because I think I just think that we're like, I just felt this collective sigh of relief from people like, oh my God, it looks good. Like,
the first trailer felt like a superhero trailer, like a DC trailer. Like, this is your big, this felt like, a slightly different movie. This felt like a, World War I movie that happens to have Wonder Woman in it.
Yeah,
Well,
this is
fine
the
either
plot
way.
trailer.
See, I really, really liked this trailer. I think it is the plot trailer, but I came out of it still being like, yeah, I'm on board. Yeah, it looks really solid. I mean, we knew that it was a World War I movie with Wonder Woman, and I was sort of hesitant. I'm like, how is that going to work?
Yeah.
But this, again, like the broad theme and the idea it seems to be exploring as presented here really works for me. It's, forcing her to come out and support all these people. I think visually it looks great. And they did have the good framing device of having that moment in the present of like BBS timeline of her looking back and sort of explain. Like, I think it's important. We all were wondering, why did she go away after all those years when we knew that she was a hero before? That seems to be what this movie is exploring.
And also it's
that's
interesting,
relevant.
like, she seems like such a grown-up in that sequence, and then she seems like kind of more like I don't want to say
An
kid, but
optimistic.
but she's definitely she even feels more youthful in the trailer. And then just that one scene, maybe she just seemed more mature and worldly. So it is going to be. I know it
been
seems
100
kind of
years.
like I don't know. It seems is it going to be a sad movie? I wonder. Like, ultimately, is there just a kind of a sad core to this movie?
I'm okay with it if they do it the right way. If it's not hopeless and shoving your face in it for the sake of it. Yeah.
It looked big. That's what it was kind of nice,
yeah.
is that like the scope looked big.
looked
Everything
beautiful.
looked huge. And I can't remember the last time we saw a superhero film that had like really massive scale.
Yeah.
And I love that scene. I mean, we saw it hinted at in the first trailer as well, but her walking out onto the battlefield and God, it looks really stunning. I hope that they don't mess it up.
I know. Well, I like
want it to be so good.
I like.
I don't think we have any red flags though. I don't think there's anything that like this might not be.
Well,
nervous.
okay. I hate to be the pisser because I do like this trailer.
Yeah.
But Danny Houston can be a very hammy actor, and he is the villain. He's playing whatever officer in that trailer. Although there's some rumors that he could be Ares actually. But he was the villain in X-Men Origins Wolverine. He was Stryker. I'm just saying.
How many
I'm
people
a little
have played
nervous. I
Stryker?
feel like Danny Houston
Jeez.
doesn't really end up in a lot of good movies sometimes, so I'm a little nervous.
But it doesn't from the 2 trailers we've seen, it doesn't look like they're hinging anything on one villain. They're building a world. They're putting her in the middle of it. They're setting all this stuff up, but it's not like certain other movies where we have put this whole movie on one character. Like he seems like he's going to be one in a cast of
Right.
Yeah, and I do like the chemistry between her and Chris Pine that we've seen in the trailers, and Etta Candy seems like she's going to be a real scene stiller.
It feels,
Yeah.
I
feels
like
very Agent Carter-y over there.
Yeah, and also a little bit of the Mummy too, like the Rachel Weisz's character. One shout out that a lot of people have been talking about is the Superman homage of her in the alley blocking the bullets, just like the way Clark Kent grabbed the bullet in Superman 78.
That scene. See, I feel I've been getting a Captain America: First Avenger vibe from this movie. Less so this time, but that scene totally reminded me of the Brooklyn fight and the elevator fight from first Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked like a real
Yeah.
I'm liking the way it's looking so far.
Yeah, she seems like a really cool Wonder Woman.
But it is interesting. I mean, we've talked a lot about the reaction to BVS and the reaction to Suicide Squad.
Yeah,
And
you didn't like either of them, right? Remember?
Let's
Internet?
just shout it from the rooftops. Everyone loves to talk about it. But it is interesting if they did take some, notes and themes and ideas from the 78 Superman, the one that people have mentioned missing that sort of hopefulness in the DC extended universe. And if they bring it into Wonder Woman, I think it fits.
Yeah.
That direct homage definitely works and is fun. I'm interested to see if we see some of that in this film, which I think, again, would really fit, especially since it is an origin movie leading into the bleaker times that we are currently existing in.
You know what's something that a movie that sprang to mind as I was watching both trailers now, a little bit of The Little Mermaid, like she lives this isolated
Under the
existence.
sea.
She lives this like isolated kind of idyllic existence. Her parent is a god, and she meets this guy from the outside world, kind of falls in love, goes to his world. Now, will she give up everything for him? I hope not, because she's Wonder Woman. But like there is that little bit of a Little Mermaid.
Is that going to be our headline now? Is Wonder Woman just the Little Mermaid? Keeping it real.
with a magic lasso. I'm just saying, maybe.
With a splash of Wakanda.
With a splash of Wakanda. That's actually, yes, the Wonder Woman with a splash of Wakanda is a lovely
I order that all the
daiquiri for the beach. I don't know. All right, so we want to hear, what do you guys think of the new Wonder Woman trailer? We liked it. I liked it. I'm just
liked it
pointing
a
out some
lot.
things that
More
that
than
guy
him.
behind the camera was
Yell
saying,
at
and I
him.
thought he had a couple of good points.
Yell at Tom.
So let us know in the comments. All right, let's move on from Wonder Woman. Let's talk about a different DC movie that was in the news this week, and it's The Flash, and director Rick Famuyiwa has dropped out, citing creative differences.
That's not dope.
That's
That's
not
not
dope.
dope.
See, that's a reference there, folks. He directed a movie called Dope, and that was a dope reference that he made. Both dope.
Ahmad,
and
you're so
reference.
dope.
I try.
What do you guys think? Come on. I mean, it's like, talk about, we can't just, we've got,
Ant-Man
they're ending the week
survived.
well with the Wonder Woman trailer, but let's face it, it started off rough with the Flash director dropping out there for the DCEU. What the hell's going on?
Ant-Man survived. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
It's-
They were
I
supposed
don't
to
think it's the end
start
of the world,
production early next year. Now that's getting pushed. The release date, Ezra Miller's schedule. He's got another
Hey,
thing.
as far as I'm concerned, Warner Brothers, take as much time as you need to get these movies right. Do
Yeah.
your thing. We're in no rush.
And Ahmad, you're obviously referencing when Edgar Wright left over creative differences and Peyton Reed came in instead. I think the difference, I mean, as excited I was about Rick directing this film, like, I love Dope. That is a fantastic movie. That was one of my favorite movies from last year.
Rick, huh? You don't want to say.
No, I don't even want to try. I don't even want to try. But I think Edgar Wright was a bit more of an auteur and had a bit more of like his own unique vision that ultimately didn't end up meshing with what the MCU was doing that late into the MCU. This just seems like Warner Brothers can't line it up.
Well, they
Can't
were
get it
saying
right.
that his Rick's vision was
Our
to
bud Rick.
Rick Famuyiwa his vision was a little too gritty, I think the word was. And I'm like, really? Gritty for the Flash? Like, I'm curious now what his...
I heard the word edgy.
Edgy. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Edgy. Okay. But what is that?
That's super vague. Honestly, it doesn't mean anything.
Come on. He's kind of a geeky guy. And of all the directors that they lined up, he seemed like the one that was going to give you that tone that you were looking for.
Balance
Playful,
serious,
high school, yeah.
playful and serious at the same time.
Yeah, like, how do you lose this guy? Like, what the hell happened? I really want to know.
Well, maybe there's a shootout in a club, and the Flash gets stuck with a big bag of dope that he has to go and sell, and it was just too serious for the DC.
That's already a better plot than some of the other
I'm
ones I've
still-
heard from.
How many of these films have lost a director and still kind of, all of the people that they were kind of, courting for Black Panther, or, they're going to go through this kind of stuff. It just, luckily, it wasn't like, hey, we're into production and now we got to get rid of somebody.
Yeah, I think that's when I'll be
yeah.
more concerned. Like, this is the second director, though it did seem like
In
Seth
1 year.
Graham.
Yeah.
Seth Graham Smith was politely escorted out the door, whereas
Politely
Rick,
How come my key card doesn't work?
whereas Rick F. My bud Rick, just seemed to have departed because his vision didn't align with Warner Brothers. Like, if it ends up being the right director, good. When I'm going to start really being concerned is when we find out after the fact the director's vision is clashing with what Warner Brothers wants, and there are all these competing edits, and basically what we heard happen with David Ayer and Suicide Squad. As long as they go in saying, okay, we're all on the same page, this is the movie we want to make, they do that, and
This
that
is the
doesn't
page
deviate.
we're on
Yeah.
now, and then when we get to the editing room, suddenly we'll be like, oh, this wasn't
I mean,
the
it's
movie.
still, it's concerning.
This is going to continue to be an issue with, as you've brought up, in relation to the cost of these movies. The more these movies cost, the more you're going to have the studio stepping in and like, hey, wait, we need to make 100% sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
And if we're not, we're going to cut ties and move on. Because when you're making a $150 million movie, it's not just, hey, let the director do his thing and let the producers do their thing. It's like, no, there's like a board meeting and, it trickles all the way down. So I think this is, we're going to see a lot more.
Eric and I
as these
did a
movies get
conversation
bigger.
this week, too, that you guys can check out about our superhero movies no longer director-friendly. So I talk more at length on about that in that video. I'll spit these words out eventually. But Terri, yes.
Yeah, I just want them to be going in with the idea instead of coming out and playing catch up. And
Yeah.
I do think, I wrote a piece before that said this, but I do think they're at the point that they need to have a couple big wins. It's like, I hope Wonder Woman is great. I want Wonder Woman to be great. I, as we just said, I loved the trailers. It seems like I'm really excited about what they're doing. But if Wonder Woman is great, it's still sort of the exception to the rule. They need Wonder Woman to be great. They need Justice League to be great. And then I think they can start to get their momentum going.
Yeah.
And not in the great that it's like, oh, IGN, your opinion's wrong, but in great in the sense that there is a unifying consensus that everyone is really on board with those movies. I think it's fair to say the other two that came out recently were divisive.
Settled the elements of what they want to do.
Right,
Like, okay,
exactly.
this is the kind of movie we want to make, and we get the audience validation, and everybody's happy with it, and then like, okay, we'll go in this direction. Because not that it's a bad thing, but you could tell they're still making tweaks along the way to like, how is this cinematic universe going to work, and what's it going to look like?
Define what do you want your DCEU to look like, the tone to be, what do you want it to be? You can play in different corners of that sandbox, but ultimately you need to know, it needs to be defined.
Whereas Marvel's stumbling block was Ant-Man, where they were building this movie outside almost of the MCU kind of system, and then
Like Doctor
once,
Strange.
and then once it got closer, they're like, oh wait, we need to make it fit now. DC's doing it a little further out, which
And
is
I still,
probably to
I
their
think
benefit.
that Kevin, it's very easy to compare these two franchises, not because they're big competitors, but just because they are attempting to do very similar things. And I think what Marvel has to its credit, it has like over a dozen movies under its belt, and it has Kevin Feige, who even, if there are
they have a
movies that
template.
are a little bit more, they have a template, but like he is the one unifying vision, and he is the mastermind who says, I know how these pieces fit together. And I think Warner Brothers still, even with Jeff Johns in charge, still is figuring out, okay, what is our unifying vision? What is our master plan? And that's changed since the first couple movies, which same thing happened with Marvel.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and look at IGN's content from Marvel Phase 1, we posted many conversations and there were many Keeping It Reels, many think pieces done on, well, it might not work, or hey, all it takes is Thor not to work, and then
They still haven't gotten a Thor movie perfectly right.
So
I remember talking to Entertainment Weekly about Thor one time, and I was just like, well, they kind of need this one to work. You know, it was like such a big question mark. Before we had seen the trailer, it was like, I don't know, we hope, you know, they've come a long way.
And if the Flash is going to be one of the more playful characters, it seems, within at least, you know, quirky, nerdy, upbeat characters, you need to get his origin movie, his standalone movie right. He seems to be a big selling point in Justice League. I really like what we've seen. You were on set. You really liked what you saw. But, you know, you can take that and then have an origin movie that sort of kills that goodwill. I don't think anyone wants that, and you only get so many redos.
All right. Well, let's move. Let's hear from you folks what you think about The Flash losing its directors. Let us know in the comments. We're going to move on to a different Warner Brothers property, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. We found out recently that there are going to be 5 movies, and then we found out this week that the second movie will star Johnny Depp.
I did not see that coming.
I didn't see that coming either.
It's like the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about Johnny Depp joining this universe, and speculation on thoughts about it? Possible spoiler, but I think it's out there now that he has a cameo in Fantastic Beasts 1, so I think we probably have figured out then what character he probably is playing in the sequel. Terri, you're the Potter nerd.
So
Show me your
Joshua
tattoos.
and I do have a Deathly Hallows tattoo, which actually is a good segue to the character.
Way you like segues.
Joshua and I had a conversation on Keeping It Real after he saw early footage of Fantastic Beasts, where he actually found out an extensive amount about how Gellert Grindelwald, a character from the mythology of Harry Potter, a very significant character in the Wizarding World past, is going to play seemingly a key role, if a small role, in the Fantastic Beasts films. Gellert Grindelwald, quick overview, like Dumbledore was a famous headmaster of Hogwarts, but before that, he, just rubbing off my tattoo, before that, his most important event that he was a part of was this massive battle, think Harry Potter versus Voldemort, with the biggest dark wizard of the time, Gellert Grindelwald, and that was in the 40s, around the time of World War II. Since Fantastic Beasts is taking place in the 20s, that would be Gellert Grindelwald's rise to power. So again, he's like Voldemort before Voldemort, very important figure. And it seems like, if you're bringing on Johnny Depp and it seems like Gellert Grindelwald is going to have a bigger role, makes a lot of sense to have him be that character. And the Fantastic Beasts marketing has even leaned really heavily into the idea, hey, Grindelwald, because that seems to be getting Harry Potter fans excited. Ezra Miller released. It's getting me excited.
You and Joshua have been geeking out about this for like days.
And there was this great video starring Ezra Miller that was put out where he apparently is a huge Harry Potter nerd. I didn't realize
that was a cool video because he
highlights like, hey guys, connect the dots. It's Gellert Grindelwald. Like that's what's happening in this movie.
That had to also be completely planned with the Johnny Depp casting announcement. I mean,
that being said, I think
jaded.
Well, I've been doing this a while.
Wasn't it Jamie Campbell Bower who played Gellert Grindelwald in Deathly Hallows?
Was that the kid from Camelot and Mortal Instruments?
Yes. Yeah. So he that was like a pretty, no offense, Jamie, but pretty throwaway actor to have. So to have Johnny Depp, if that is the case, I feel like Johnny Depp's career more recently has been either these very dark dramas, Black Mass, or these very makeup-heavy, sort of CGI, colorful characters. Grindelwald doesn't seem either, and it also doesn't help that the public perception of Johnny Depp is really low right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know. He's not who I would have picked.
I mean, it's curious to see it because I did see that reaction on Twitter. It was like, oh, my interest in this just dropped because it's him. I mean, look, he is Jack Sparrow. He was the Mad Hatter. His star has been kind of waning at the box office before all the stuff with his divorce came out. I think it's going to be interesting to bring him in, and especially as a bad guy role. but it's not like when you bring in The Rock to a franchise
I was
where
just
it's like
thinking.
franchise Viagra.
Why was it The Rock Geller Grindelwald? I don't understand. He looks like a German fellow.
Oh my God, that thing, that video of him dressed up as Pikachu for his little girl is adorable, and it made me think he needs to be Detective Pikachu in that movie. The Rock is
Put The
Detective.
Rock
needs
in.
to be
I
a
got
little
Benedict
bit.
Cumberbatch, Doctor Strange. I'll turn.
Go find The Rock.
damn
Where is he? Get
into
out
his
of
fa-
here.
He's in
Fly.
Hawaii,
Fly,
filming
you
Jumanji.
fool.
Fly, fly,
pranking
fool. But okay, Fantastic Beasts 2 is also reportedly going to be set in Paris. And I think it's going to be a few years later, I think. I don't know.
We
than
knew
the-
that each of the movies were supposed to be set in different cities. It wasn't just going to be New York,
Yeah.
which is interesting to get a global look at the wizarding world.
Yeah.
You know, how long before Warner Brothers was like, we need our China one. We need that China box
Pretty much.
office.
I'm telling you, that one's right around the
But
corner.
I mean, Paris makes sense. It is, you know,
The city of lights and
well,
love.
it's leading into World War II. If they keep jumping a few years, my hope.
Will they run into Wonder Woman on the battlefields of Belgium?
My hope.
Oh wait, no, you got to go back in time.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's the
sorry,
wrong
I screwed
direction.
it up. Yep.
My hope, though,
My
is
bad.
hit 5. If we jump a few years every time, we could end with that big battle between Gellert Grindelwald and Dumbledore, and seeing that would be awesome if they make it all the way through their 5-movie plan. But moving over to Paris would make sense. They'd be in Europe near where Gellert Grindelwald would be rising to power,
Mm-hmm.
and that obviously France plays a big role in World War II.
Yep.
Makes sense to me, but
Be interesting
I
if they
haven't seen
picked
it.
an actor who is big in that particular region for each one. It's like they get to Germany and Christoph Waltz will be playing the villain. You're like, wait a minute.
Karate Partout, what do you happen to be doing here in Fantastic Beasts 2?
Jackie Chan, how did you get here?
And it'd be great if Jackie's like, I don't know.
While holding a ladder.
Here. You know?
Now I want to see Jackie Chan in this.
What do you guys think about Johnny Depp possibly being Clark Griswold? What's his name again?
Clark Griswold.
What's his name?
It's actually Gellert Grindelwald is how.
Geller
yeah,
Grindelwald,
Ezra
Sarah
Miller.
Michelle Griswold. Right. What do you think
When
about
Johnny Depp
Depp
plays
maybe
Sarah
playing-
Michelle Griswold,
I'm
do
just-
you
what do you
think
think?
that will be the portrayal of?
Let
I'll
us,
watch that
let
on
us
Lifetime.
know in the comments. Terry, you did a set visit for Ghost in the Shell.
I did.
And you posted some stuff this week.
I did.
And you're going to tell us about some of these things.
I am.
You are.
So I got to go to New Zealand, which was crazy. If you remember me posting a lot of stories from New Zealand about how I made a 13-hour detour to go to Hobbiton, this was the set visit behind that. It was really interesting. You know, set visits can go a lot of different ways. This one involved us spending most of our time in a conference room lined with concept art, but in on this set that, you know, or studio sound stages that had some sets that seemed to be from later in the movies, and because they were shooting stuff that was more towards the climax, we saw Scarlett Johansson shooting a fight scene and her stunt
nice.
double shooting a fight scene, but didn't really get any context for it. What we did get is, you know, a walkthrough of the costumes and an understanding of some of the interesting things doing to get the aesthetics right for
Right.
the movie. In fact, the person who was planning like the LED lights that are basically what they use to light the sets and project it, picked all the colors that they used specifically from the anime film.
Oh, nice.
So to make sure like it literally will match up with the aesthetic of the movie, they used the entire color palette, which
That's really
seems
cool.
great. And also, if you look at the imagery they've released and the sizzle
does have
reels,
that kinda,
it
yeah.
totally has that vibe. But because of that, it's very early, and I'm loath to say, you know, they nailed it or they didn't. What I will
Right,
say
right.
is, you know, as someone, I actually haven't seen the anime series or read the manga, but I have seen the 1995 anime film. That's sort of
Right.
the most famous bit of Ghost in the Shell multiple times, and it holds up, and it's fantastic, and it was so influential. And it seems like they're really drawing a lot of the movie from that. But
Okay.
they also are, I wrote a whole piece about how the anime, both film and TV series and manga, influenced the or what the movie drew from those, and it seems like they're drawing stuff from Standalone Complex, which was, you know, another series, or actually I think that was a later movie. Now I'm mixing myself
going
up.
down
Like
the
I
nerd
said,
rabbit hole,
I know.
people.
And now, like I said,
All the way.
but drawing stuff from Standalone Complex, the villain Kuze, who we don't know too much about, that's Michael Pitt's character, was in Standalone Complex second gig. So they are drawing bits and pieces from everywhere, and it seems like on paper they have everything right. Yes, there's the whitewashing conversation. No, they were not willing to speak about the whitewashing conversation on set. They did not want to have that be a part of the discussion. I do think it's an important discussion to have, but also, a lot of our readers are big fans, and if the question is, are they getting Ghost in the Shell right? It seems like they understand that, it's not about having a big fight scene, like end of the world type situation at the end of the movie. It's more about the existential questions, and the big theme of this movie is identity. So it seems like they have the right understanding of it, but we won't know if it's a good movie until the edit happens. Like it's something that could totally come together or just fall apart in the finished product.
Well, speaking of existentialism, let's talk about Scarlett Johansson's nude suit.
Oh, so
Come on,
if you've
this
seen
is let's face it. Apparently, it's doing quite well on the site.
Well, the article about it. If you've seen Ghost in the Shell, one of the most film, one of the most iconic scenes is Major, Scarlett Johansson's character, falling seemingly naked, like down a skyscraper and assassinating these government officials. And
that at every Comic-Con
And then
party.
after she
That's
does
nothing
it,
new
and
for
they're
me.
like, "Oh my God, what happened?" She sort of just dissolves away and becomes invisible, and it's her thermoptic suit it's hard to create because Major is fully naked, like she has nipples. I talked a lot about Major's nipples on set, and everyone thought I was crazy, but I was like, this is a valid question, guys. But so what ended up happening is the costume designer to create...
Never on this show have the words Major's nipples ever been uttered.
But it was really interesting finding out what the film did to recreate that, right? And their big problem was they wanted to, again, stay true to the idea of it, but not have it just be Scarlett Johansson naked. They wanted to make it clear that it is a suit, even if it is flesh-colored.
This is going to probably be a PG-13 movie, right?
I think so. They weren't settled on what the rating will be, I think, until they have a final... They submit a cut of the movie to the MPAA. We won't know what it is. But Avi Arad, the producer, was saying, we weren't going for an R movie. And even if it was an R movie, we weren't going to be seeing Scarlett Johansson naked.
Yeah, no.
So Weta is, from Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, they're the ones who are doing the special effects and prosthetics and everything.
So it's going to look good, is what you're saying.
I mean, I hope
do
so.
good work.
And they did say, they went a lot more because they had a tighter turnaround for The Hobbit. They didn't have as much time to do prosthetics and make things real. And so for that movie, they used a lot of VFX. And this one, I think there's more of a mix between the two. And for Major's outfit, it's not digital. They basically created a silicone suit that Scarlett Johansson will wear that was like made of a mold of her body.
The image of that is that I think from the trailer, isn't she? She's in profile, and she looks like she's almost in some sort of case or something. Like,
oh no, that's the window, but she's wearing like a jacket over it. That's not what this is.
Fashionable. Just
her bomber jacket. That's like her iconic look here. So it's there again. A whole story up on the website about it, but it is really interesting. We got to see sort of an early model of what it might look like, and it's one of the coolest elements of the movie. Like how it's used, both that assassination scene and then there's this chase and fight scene that ends up like her in the thermoptic suit, invisible, fighting this guy.
Oh, nice.
It's cool. Really neat. So it sounds like they're going to do some of those scenes here too.
All right. Well, I don't really know much about Ghost in the Shell, but I look forward to learning. Yes, I will. My fear is that it's going to be like another Aeon Flux movie, But.
Yeah, and I think that's...
Has there ever been a good
I'm not sure.
It looks it's got to be at least $100 million. I mean, it looks.
It's again, like I said, it's hard to judge because we saw a lot of concept art. We saw a lot of in the process prosthetics and what the intention was, but we didn't see any finished product. I think until we see the full trailer, we won't really know how it looks, and definitely until we see the movie, it could be something that just falls apart in the finished product. But it seemed like they're really trying. It's taken a decade for this movie to get made, and I should say too, we met a lot of the supporting cast, and it is an incredibly diverse supporting cast, even if it's not a Japanese woman playing Major. But it seems like they're working really hard to get everything that made Ghost in the Shell so iconic and significant and influential in the big screen version.
Right.
But, I just watched that 1995 movie, and it's so not a Hollywood blockbuster because of the way it ends, which isn't in a fight scene. It's like what comes after the fight scene that's very existential and philosophical. And can they get away with doing that in a movie? And if they do, and if they get it right, then that's great. If they try and end with a big fight scene, then they're missing the point. So.
Well, you always have Blade Runner and Watchmen to kind of like, how do we adapt a dense property into something for a large market? And
well, if you go the Blade Runner route, just watch like read a third of the source material and wing it for the rest of it.
Yeah, wing the last act.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing all that you learned about Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, if you have more questions, hit me up on Twitter to anything that we didn't touch upon.
At Terri Schwartz.
At Terri_Schwartz.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to rattle off a few news items in the time that we have left. The Dark Tower movie was supposed to come out in February, and it's now been pushed to, we believe, summer 2017, but at least later in 2017. More
like
time to
late
do
July,
the
maybe.
visual effects and all that. I can't say I was really shocked by that because, that trailer did leak, but they never ended up releasing it officially.
I think it was like the meh response from all the diehards, like the people who should be really jazzed to get their first look at the Dark Tower were like, okay.
Yeah.
And that trailer was in no way finished.
No,
The minute you looked at
not.
it, you're like, this is not done.
But
Yeah.
even from that, it seemed somewhat pedestrian to me. Like it was just a lot of people walking around New York, and I didn't get a sense that this was something special. But I want to see more from the movie, and obviously now, if it does come out in the summer of 2017, then that means it just became a Comic-Con movie, really, in a way.
And it should be a Comic-Con movie. That being said, I mean, we've talked a lot. We've had retrospectives on the summer blockbuster season this past year, and there were just so many Comic-Con movies and event movies that everything sort of got lost. You saw the movies that were big hits, the ones that came out before that and after that. So I am sort of concerned that Dark Tower could get lost in the shuffle there. But I mean, take more time on it, see if you can get it right, try and fix it in post if things aren't working.
Couple
the way
of
you want it
other,
to.
Spring is the new summer, so
Yeah.
it's basically to the new fall.
Yeah.
A couple of other news items I'm going to throw out there. Alien Covenant, Michael Fassbender revealed that he is playing two roles in the movie. He's back, of course, as the synthetic David, but he also plays a new synthetic named Walter, who is a newer model, and so they don't quite get along. So that's kind of...
He hasn't been updated in a while. His OS is like Panther or something.
How many Alien movies are we away from the entire cast just being Michael Fassbender? Do you think that'll be
like
Alien,
2.5.
Alien 3 again?
Where he plays Ripley. I want to see that.
But just as Michael Fassbender, his character's name will be Ripley.
Get away from her, you bitch.
Him standing next to mirrors.
Avatar 2, James Cameron says that they're really going to try and do it in classes-free 3D. Okay?
Can we just not talk about Avatar until one of those movies comes out? Because I'm tired of talking about this movie that is not anywhere close to being in a theater.
I know.
We've
Or
been talking
even
about
being
this
in
movie
front of a
so-
camera. At this
Yeah.
point, yeah.
Let's talk about it when it's close.
Kevin Feige said that the MCU could become, quote, more intimate after Infinity War, maybe more, and I don't think he means like sexy
Champagne?
intimate. Like, hello.
MCU.
I would watch it.
But that maybe different pairings of characters that you wouldn't expect
That's
to
the
see.
line that he said that got me more excited because
Right.
we're already seeing some of that, with
Ant-Man and the
Thor.
Wasp.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, which makes sense, but the pairings thing I think he meant was more like Thor Ragnarok, where it's Thor and Hulk teaming up.
Yeah.
And if we get to see more of that again, once we get past all these origin movies, if it's not just Thor 3 and here's Thor's story, it's mixing and matching these characters like they would in the comics. Yes, that is what gets me more excited.
A Winter Soldier Shield movie.
There we go. Well,
Shield
it's
makes
not
it
out of
that
the realm of
long.
possibility, right?
like
So they're rebooting Rambo, but without Stallone. To me, I'm like, why bother? I get that it's recognizable IP, but Stallone is Rambo. Just like Creed worked because it wasn't like, oh, we're rebooting Rocky with a whole new Rocky. It's a different story with Rocky. And
Rambo
sequel
with The
boot.
Rock.
yeah, sequel boot.
Yeah, it was great.
Deadpool 2, we found out right after last week's show that the director candidates include David Leitch, who was one of the directors on John Wick, so Eric Goldman called it. Drew Goddard, who did Cabin in the Woods and
Daredevil season 1.
yeah, he
Early,
wrote a couple
like,
of
early
yeah.
Daredevil.
And then this awesome name, Magnus Martins, who did Luke Cage, directed some of the Luke Cage episodes.
Like one
But what a
episode,
what a name, Magnus. Him and Mads Mikkelsen need to like hang out.
Or be on the Tough Man competition.
Exactly. Then let's see, yada yada yada. Oh, Uncharted. Sean Levy, the director of that, did say that he's already had some like low-level talks with certain actors, and he's approached some of them. We talked about that last week on the one that you weren't on.
We'll know around January.
Yeah, let's see how Assassin's Creed does. But I think it'll be any. We have a thing up on the site about him talking about they really want to capture some of the specific action sequences from the games and the tone of it. And he thinks that they finally have the story nailed down.
Up a train that's about to fall off.
I think he actually mentions that sequence.
That opening
does, yeah.
is such a good video
I
game
have
opening.
an idea for Nathan Drake, and I'm just going to throw it out there. Some of the fans were mentioning, hey, what about Oscar Isaac? I'm like, that's cool, but I think he might be a little, maybe too old for that guy. I don't know. I mean, people thought Hugh Jackman was too old for it when we mentioned it. But Wyatt Russell, who is Kurt Russell's kid, and he's on the second episode of Black Mirror, and he was Channing Tatum's buddy in 22 Jump Street. He basically looks just like his dad. But, yeah, I don't know. Just throwing it out there. All right, so opening up this weekend, a little something we call Doctor Strange, or as Jim called it, the movie that I helped get cast.
Hey,
Check
Jim.
out my Twitter.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
Have you ever talked to Benedict Cumberbatch before?
About an MCU film, maybe?
Have you?
Why,
Did
yes,
you talk
yes,
to
I
him
did.
at an event about,
4
Star Trek
years
Into
ago?
Darkness?
Have you ever gotten anyone cast? in a
Do you
film?
have a tweet that shows that you...
It's pinned to my wall.
My favorite thing, so Jim, if you've missed this story, and God, I don't know how you could have because he keeps talking about it as he should, suggested to Benedict Cumberbatch, I think you'd make a great Doctor Strange. And my favorite thing about your junket interview with Benedict, which I now understand why you were like, I gotta do this junket, is you sat down and you're like, let me take you back. And he just looks at you and goes, it was you. Because he's been touting that story on like every talk show and all these
Great.
Graham
interviews.
Norton got a shout out on
But
that.
he knows your name now. I'm disappointed
He does.
he's not name checking you. But,
I know. Well, or just checking me. I'm just saying.
But I can't believe how
Finder's fee. Just saying.
how many
finder's fee.
times have you like talked to someone and been like, you would be great for X or Y, and then you're like, okay, you immediately forgot about it.
It's
He said
happened
he
a few
went,
times,
He,
though,
but
with
he
me.
said he went out after you suggested that and
read.
actually read it, which is like crazy. That's the
Just
craziest
saying.
part to me.
But enough about me. Let's talk about what you thought about Doctor Strange. Ahmad and I just did a spoiler cast with Goldman. So we went into full details and full spoilers. We're not going to get into spoilers here, but Ahmad, I think it's fair to say we both liked the movie, didn't love it, didn't think it was great, thought it was really good. thought it was
7
fun.
territory.
Yeah. Eric's review is the standing review of the site. So Terry, what did you think of Doctor Strange?
Yeah, I think that I'm in line with you guys. I honestly wish that I
See,
hadn't.
that sounds awful. It sounds like you're caving to pressure. No.
No, I think, something that was a detriment for me, and I sort of did it to myself, downside of the job, but I went to that early screening event and saw about 20 minutes of footage and was just so blown away by the VFX.
Yeah.
And the VFX, I think, are, Benedict Cumberbatch is the star of this movie, and he's fantastic, and Tilda Swinton is great as the Ancient One, but the VFX steal the show.
Yeah.
And it's worth seeing in 3D, which I never say.
I
I
agree.
even considered, and I hate 3D. I'm like, maybe I should see this again in 3D.
You
yeah,
sh-
this
you
is the
absolutely
only
should.
MCU movie I feel like you actually need to see in
But
3D.
I wish that I hadn't seen that. I wish I'd just seen it in the movie as a whole, because I had already seen a lot of that stuff. And I think as an origin movie, it's like, fine. I think they, rushed to get to certain points at the beginning, but then it also dragged out some. And I think, it's hard coming off, Civil War and coming off all these Avengers movies to go back and be like, okay, and here's a new corner you don't already know about. And the thing that got me most excited at the end of the movie was like, oh yeah, we got that out of the way. Now we get to have fun with him. Like now we
Yeah.
get to mix and match him.
Yeah.
And I think that's a struggle that Marvel's gonna have with origin movies going forward. Is like, how do you make them really pop and not feel like just necessary setup to?
I'm
How
wondering
do
what
you
kind of
shrink
lessons.
the origin?
Yeah.
But also,
I'm wondering how they're going to do it with Captain Marvel.
I am too.
right, and I think Captain Marvel comes out after Infinity War Part 1, and it depends. We've heard things
Straight
back and
vodka.
forth
That's great.
about whether or not she's actually going to appear in Infinity War. It seems like she will, but an interesting thing that they're going to have with Spider-Man and with Black Panther is we've already met those characters.
Yeah.
It's not their first introduction. Doctor Strange might be the last in a line of your first introduction is this movie, origin
Yeah.
movies, and I think having the context of them like the other characters knowing the Avengers might have their movies feel like they fit into the MCU instead of just being a different entry
And just
point.
kind of cutting to the chase a bit. Yeah.
I mean, I liked it. It's not a bad movie. It's not my favorite MCU movie. It's somewhere in the
So we're
middle.
what? We're on. This is the 14th one or 15th? 14th, right?
Keep losing
Yeah,
track.
they've made
I'm
so
going to
many. now.
defer to
That's
you.
why I said over a dozen earlier.
But it's already made 86 million overseas. It's tracking to open in the 70 million range here stateside. So obviously we'll talk about the box office and how it did and what that means. I'm curious to see what the cinema score will be for this one, and if audiences, how much repeat business it might get. I kind of have a gut feeling that this might be the first MCU movie in recent times that won't get a sequel, at least not automatically. I think the movie will do well, but I don't know if you necessarily need Doctor Strange to.
Let's see what the 3D and IMAX numbers look like.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
going back to what we were just saying about Kevin Feige saying they'll mix and match, I would imagine they do that with Doctor Strange. You wouldn't
Yeah.
get. I think that they're going to do away with like straight sequels. It'll be,
I want some Marvel team-up movies. I
No,
used to love
exactly.
Tales to
that.
Like
Astonish.
Doctor
Yeah.
Strange and Iron Man or anything along those lines. I think once we get into the phase 4 of it all, that's probably what we're going to be
It would
seeing.
be a fun
lot
character
more.
to pair Doctor Strange with. Like, it'd be kind of funny if you get this guy who can do everything, and then you put him with like Hawkeye, and he's like, I got a bow and arrow.
But like the other
You
extreme
could do the
too.
portal thing like the X-Men
he
Days
just
of
jumps
Future
in.
Past. and
Doctor
just-
Strange and Drax.
Oh, man.
That's actually fun. That would be rad. Doctor Strange and Drax. I
And
love
basically
that.
make it midnight run, and they have to transport a
Oh
prisoner.
my
a cranky
God, that's
prisoner.
rad. I totally love this idea.
We have so many characters to play with now.
Ah, this is
Feige
so
on the
cool. I
call.
love that. Doctor Strange and Drax. I like that. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to talk more about Doctor Strange in more spoilerish detail next week. We're going to give folks a chance to go see the movie this weekend. Also, for those overseas who have already seen it, send us your thoughts as well. But
And I also want to say, if you happen to disagree with anyone's opinions about Doctor Strange, keep it civil on Keeping It Real. We do just want to
Civil.
foster really, engaging conversation about movies. It's not about, a pissing contest.
Yeah.
No one's ruining your favorite heroes or, elevating ones you don't think are worthy. Please, again, just be polite. We want to have a conversation with you. We don't want people hurling insults around the internet
Or death threats.
or death threats.
yeah, come on. Let's just keep it nice, people.
Keep it
We need to have nice things. Come on.
Yeah.
All right, so that's going to do it for this week's show. We'll be back with more Doctor Strange next week and more of whatever else the movie geek gods rain down on us. Although, yeah, we'll be doing a show next week. It'll be post-election. You're going to be on the road, though.
No, I will be here for that.
Oh, okay,
The week
yeah.
after, I will not be here.
Okay. All right. So send us your thoughts at keepingitreal@ign.com. Follow us on Twitter at Jim Vivida, at Terri_Schwartz, at Ahmad Childress. For all things movies, keep it here on IGN. Thanks.